Without sports, none of us would be here.
Inspiring short films from the BBC.
This is BBC News live from Jerusalem. I'm Lyse Doucet. Israel, backed by its allies, shoots down hundreds of missiles and drones as Iran launches an unprecedented attack from its territory. Iran's retaliatory action comes after Israel's strike on its consulate in Syria 2 weeks ago, which killed some of its most senior Revolutionary Guards operating in this region.
Live from London, I'm Maryam Moshiri. President Biden reaffirms the US's ironclad commitment to Israel's security as more British jets are sent to the region. Israel, Jordan and Iraq reopened their airspaces after closing them late on Saturday. And this is the scene live in Tel Aviv. It was the first time Iran had ever launched a direct military assault on Israel.
Welcome to Jerusalem, as a new chapter is now being written in the turbulent history of the Middle East. After decades of shadow wars and covert operations, Iran and Israel, longtime arch enemies, are now in direct confrontation. In the early hours of the morning here in this region, Iran launched hundreds of drones and missiles over Israeli territory. Israel, backed by its allies, said almost all of the projectiles were shot down. It says the attack was foiled. And this morning, Israel is still on high alert, and the Israeli army says it is now weighing its response. Let's just look at this video of the events throughout the night here in Jerusalem and across Israel. What you hear is the air raid sirens in Jerusalem and many other cities. What you see on the screen is Israel's air defense system, the Iron Dome, in operation. Flashes in the Jerusalem sky as drones and missiles are shot down. A coalition of Israel's allies, including the United States and the United Kingdom, helped shoot down some of the Iranian projectiles before they reached Israeli territory. This is footage of the intercepts happening over neighboring Jordan. And this is another video which shows the intercepts in the skies over Damascus in Syria, and you can see there the objects being hit in the sky. And two, a reminder of just how regional this crisis is. In Iraq as well, more drones and missiles were intercepted. As they traveled, some of them, the drones taking hours to reach Israel, being intercepted before they reached the borders of Israel. These are momentous times. Let's just recap here at 10 o'clock in the morning in Jerusalem and in many countries across the region what we know so far. Israel says that Iran has attacked its territory with around 300 drones and missiles, including ballistic missiles. There were, as we've just been seeing, significant explosions in the sky over Israel. Those are being caused by interceptions from Israel's much vaunted air defense system, the Iron Dome. The Israeli military says it shot down as many as 99% of the drones and missiles fired from Iran. In the night, U.S. President Joe Biden spoke with Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He condemned the attacks by Iran. He said that the U.S. also shot down some Iranian drones. UK coalition forces were also involved in defensive operations. And President Biden says he will convene a meeting of G7 countries later today to coordinate what he called a united diplomatic response. In terms of the damage, Israeli military says that one girl, a 10-year-old girl, was injured and they hope she will recover. and that light damage was caused to an airbase in southern Israel. We're still waiting for details of that. Now this morning, after these overnight attacks, these unprecedented overnight attacks, the first time Iran is directly attacking Israel from Iranian territory, the war of words is continuing, with Iran warning Israel and the United States that any response by Israel would be met with an even harsher response. And Iran's proxies in the region have also been speaking. They also were in action last night. They fired rockets at Israel. Let's listen to Daniel Hagari, the IDF spokesman, giving us this update. We're going to bring you that in a minute, but let's bring in my colleague in London, Maryam Moshiri.
Lyse, thank you very much indeed. Yes, Daniel Hagari, will listen to that quote in a moment or two, but I want to just briefly take a look at some of the major international reaction. President Biden rushed to the Situation Room in Washington to keep across developments. The White House published a photo from the Situation Room on X. You can see here the president surrounded by some of his top security officials, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, Secretary of State Antony Blinken, among others. Well, President Biden has spoken over the phone with the Israeli PM, Benjamin Netanyahu, to say he condemns the attacks in the strongest possible terms. Well, in a statement, President Biden said, "I've just spoken with Prime Minister Netanyahu to reaffirm America's ironclad commitment to the security of Israel. I told him that Israel demonstrated a remarkable capacity to defend against and defeat even unprecedented attacks, sending a clear message to its foes that they cannot effectively threaten the security of Israel." He went on to say this: "I will convene my fellow G7 leaders to coordinate a united diplomatic response to Iran's brazen attack." Well, the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, was also quick to release a statement overnight. It said this: "I condemn in the strongest terms the Iranian regime's reckless attack against Israel." He said in the statement, "These strikes risk inflaming tensions and destabilising the region. Iran has once again demonstrated that it is intent on sowing chaos in its own backyard. The UK will continue to stand up for Israel's security and that of all our regional partners, including Jordan and Iraq. Alongside our allies, we are urgently working to stabilise the situation and prevent further escalation. No one wants to see more bloodshed." That from the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. Well, the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres released a statement saying this: "I strongly condemn the serious escalation represented by the large-scale attack launched on Israel by the Islamic Republic of Iran this evening. I call for an immediate cessation of these hostilities. I'm deeply alarmed about the very real danger of a devastating region-wide escalation. I urge all parties to exercise maximum restraint to avoid any action that could lead to major military confrontations on multiple fronts in the Middle East." Well, let's cross back to my colleague Lyse Doucet now, who joins us live from Jerusalem. And Lyse, talk us a little bit more through what we know about what happened overnight and the reaction since then.
Yes, many across the region are now looking closely at exactly what kind of retaliation Iran has carried out. There was so much discussion in the run-up to the Iranian strike, which was telegraphed by the United States, with Joe Biden days ago saying that an attack was imminent and then saying it would happen sooner rather than later. And then there was the unnamed military sources in the US speaking about the kind of attack that indeed did unfold in the early hours of the morning. 300 projectiles, including drones and missiles, including ballistic missiles. Iran has cast this as a limited, carefully calibrated strike. It caused limited damage, But here in Israel and amongst its allies, they're now looking at this strike. And even though the US and the UK are urging restraint, Israel says it is now looking at its options. Well, let's look in more detail. We can join our security correspondent, Frank Gardner. Frank, just give us a bit more detail about what kind of weaponry Iran deployed in this first retaliatory strike against Israeli territory.
Okay, so according to the Israeli military, the IDF, Iran launched 107